Well, it might have been yesterday, the extra early start on the day out of sheer necessity, the trip to the hospital, the pacing of the floor, the walking up and down in the hospital ward, trying to, make things happen. The waiting. Oh, the waiting. All day long waiting. The anticipation, the fear, the wonderment, the joy, the delight, the pain, the labor. It was all there. And then the first cry, the first holding of that precious little baby. Check it all out, 10 fingers, 10 toes, little button nose, dark eyes. So real, so very, very real. There is nothing ever more real than a baby. I think we understand that here. Babies are very real. I'm looking around at a few of them. It's lovely. But you know something? When you hold a baby, you don't just hold a baby with your hands and your arms. You hold a baby with your heart. And I've talked with parents. I've been one. When you see that baby for the first time, you wonder, how could I so already love this child that I've only just met? So much. Love them so much. But we do. And it's so very real. But let's back up a little bit. Let's back up, let's say 2,000 years to another birth where there was waiting and there was anticipation and there was wonderment and there was pain and there was labor and there was, I'm sure, some fear. And then there was the first cry and the first cuddle and then the realization that this baby had been born, this baby who was more than merely a human baby had been born. This baby was Emmanuel, God with us. This baby was Jesus, and he would save his people from their sins. This baby was God in the flesh. Just imagine having that realization intrude on your consciousness. Well, the birth of any baby is special, but a little over 2,000 years ago, something simply amazing happened. When Jesus was born, God came near. And not just near like in the wind and the fire. Remember, Israel experienced that. Not just near as in the Shekinah glory in the tabernacle or in the Holy of Holies in the temple. Not just near in some profound spiritual sense of presence and nearness, but God came near in the flesh and blood form of a baby. Touchable, tangible to our senses. God came near. Emmanuel, God with us. And why should that fact of history be so amazing? Why should it stir up within us a deep sense of wonder and awe? Perhaps as we think about what theologians call the immanence and the transcendence of God, we'll find an answer to the question. But what exactly do we mean when we talk about God's immanence and God's transcendence? Why does it matter that we try to grasp these, big theological concepts and understand what these words are trying to convey? What value is there in better understanding these things? Well, the bottom line is that there's something here that we want to grasp and understand so that we can and we will think better about the God whom we worship. The God of the Bible who has revealed himself to us in Jesus Christ. So really just going to think about two things this morning. First of all, God is immanent, and secondly, God is transcendent. So first of all, God is immanent. What do we mean by that? Well, the dictionary defines immanence as the pervading presence of God in his creation. In other words, God is present and he's active in the universe. He is involved in that which he has created. He's intimately concerned with and involved in our affairs. Nature and human nature and all of history are within the scope of his activity. He is not, says one writer, chosen to leave us alone or to abandon us. Rather, he is engaged with us. He is involved in all that he has made. He is immanent to us. And this is the picture that emerges as we read the Bible. We all know Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And when it was all said and done, and he came back into the garden. He created it all. Says, it's good, it's good, it's good, it's good. And then he created man and said, it's very good. And then it says in Genesis 3 that he came into the garden in the cool of the evening to spend some time with the man and the woman that he'd created, to have fellowship with them, to know them, for them to know him in some deeper way, to be close to the human beings that he had made. And as human history progressed, God did not remain aloof and distant from his creation even after the fall. Maybe you think, well, he should have just backed out. No, he didn't. He didn't remain aloof and distant from his creation, but he continued to interact with human beings and with all of creation, and he continued to be involved in the human's existence. I mean, witness the lives of the patriarchs in the book of Genesis, book of Job. Think of Abraham's encounters with God, or think of Isaac's or Jacob's encounters with God. God simply would not leave them alone. He pursued them. He looked for them. He fellowshiped with them. He continually revealed himself to them, and whether that was as a guest for dinner or in a midnight wrestling match, whether it was in giving a promise and then fulfilling the promise, God was actively engaged with his people that he had made. With the birth of the nation of Israel in Egypt and their subsequent miraculous exodus from there, followed by their wanderings in the desert and their conquest of Canaan, in all of it, we see God revealing himself and involving himself in their existence. He is a God who is present with his people. And what begins as a trickle with the patriarchs broadens to a stream for Israel and a flood for the nations. God not only involves himself in relational ways with particular people or with particular groups of people, but he is indeed involved providentially in the lives of everyone and in the life of all of creation. He has not absented himself from what he has made. And this is exactly the point I think Paul is making when he speaks to the philosophers at Athens. You remember he goes to Athens and he sees this one podium or this one statue, whatever, saying, to the unknown God, an altar. To the unknown God. He says, hey, well, you guys don't know what I'm going to tell you about. Let me tell you about the God you don't know. The God who made the world and all the things in it, since he is Lord of heaven and earth, does not dwell in temples made with hands. Neither is he served by human hands as though he had needed anything, since he himself gives to all life and breath and all things. And he made from one every nation of mankind to live on all the face of the earth, having determined their appointed times and the boundaries of their habitation, that they should seek God if perhaps they might grope for him and find him, though he is not far from each one of us. For in him we live and move and exist, or as the King James puts it, in him we live and move and have our being. As even some of your own poets have said, for we also are his offspring. That's in Acts chapter 17. See, God is involved with us. He is near to us. He has not left us alone. I think all of us could share story after story of how we have experienced God in our lives, how he has met us, how he's spared us or protected us or provided for us. For example, I'll give you some personal examples to help paint the picture. When I was a kid, 5 or 6 years old, we lived in Kindersley, where my dad was pastoring. Our house was about a half a block off Main Street. He had an alley and then one house and then Main Street. And one day I was on my tricycle and I went down to the corner of our street on Main Street, and as I just got there, this carload of men pulled up and said, "Kid, get in the car." Well, I was scared out of my mind. I turned tail and left, but I'm to this day convinced God protected me. I don't know what would have happened. I had no idea what their intentions were. Living in the world we live in now, I could guess. Or when I was, I could give you a long list of times God has spared my life, but one time, 17 years old, 18 years old, I had a Datsun 510. I love that little car. And picked up my friend. I was taking him home later in the afternoon in Strathmore, and I crossed the highway, not seeing the semi that was coming. It missed my back bumper by a foot. And I could give example after example of how God spared my life. But then there's all the times God has provided for me. I can long list of that. The times that God has answered prayer, the times that God has healed me. I mean, God has been involved. That's the point. God is involved for us, and I think we all have stories we could tell. If we think about our life, of how God has been involved in our lives. He is here. He's present. He's immanent. He's near to us. He has not left us alone. And I'm pretty sure we can all testify to the truth of that. To paraphrase C.S. Lewis, it is only because he does think of us, he does involve himself with us, that we continue to exist. God is immanent. God is near. Now, some have been tempted to think that because God is near and is intimately involved in the natural world he created and is working through the natural laws that he has set in place, some have been tempted to think that he will not, or he does not, or maybe even cannot, intervene in our lives in supernatural or miraculous ways. But God is not limited to any one means or method for accomplishing his purposes in our world. If you want to do an interesting study, do a study of all Jesus' miracles. I heard Charles Price preaching on this, and it just really struck me. He says, Jesus never used the same method twice. When he healed people, one time, he spits in their eye, and another time he makes a little mud pie, and another time he just says a word, and it's always something different. He never gets stuck in one method, because you know what would happen if he used the same method twice. You go, well, that must be the preferred method. And we think that's how it has to be. But God doesn't want to get boxed in. He does things different. He can do it however he wants. So, for example, when someone is sick, God may choose to work by means of medicine, or he may choose to temporarily suspend a so-called natural law that he's put in place and allow what we call a miracle to happen. In either case, God would still be at work accomplishing his purpose in his world and in this world, or in a particular person's life. And I've seen and experienced both of those, both medicine healing people and God doing miracles. He doesn't get fenced in. He'll do whatever he wants to do in a particular situation. He's not limited to either one or to any option when it comes to accomplishing his desired end. And neither is he limited to working only through those people who are devoted to him in accomplishing his will on the earth. And maybe that comes as a shock to us. But God's not limited to working only through the people that love him. We know from the Old Testament that God used heathen rulers to fulfill his plan. Assyria was used to chasten Israel. I think it's in Isaiah where God says, I whistled and Assyria came and did my bidding. I love that picture. A pagan king endorsed and financed the rebuilding of Jerusalem. And we hear about this guy in the news these days, Cyrus of Persia, who sent Nehemiah to go and rebuild the walls of Jerusalem and then to rebuild the temple. And he financed it. In New Testament times, it was the Roman peace, Pax Romana, that enabled the gospel to spread so quickly throughout the known world in the first century. And by the end of the first century, the gospel had made it to India, made it into Ethiopia and Africa, made it over to Spain and Britain, like really the known world, at least the known world to Romans. The gospel had spread. Why was it? Because the Roman peace. The Romans kept the peace, and they also had a very good road system. And the gospel could easily get to the places that the apostles wanted to take it to. It's a very interesting study. It's good to know your history. In more recent times, it's possible to trace a link between European colonialism and the spread of the gospel. And I'm not saying that always the right thing got spread, but the gospel did get spread because of European colonialism. Africa, Asia, South America, North America. The gospel got spread because of colonial powers looking for new places to control. And within the lifetime of my own parents' generation, God has used an evil empire to bring about the fulfillment of prophecy. I mean, how else can you explain the recreation of the state of Israel in our day? God worked through evil, used that to accomplish a higher purpose, a bigger purpose, fulfillment of prophecy, the rebirth of the nation of Israel. And you know, God is at work in our world. He is involved in our world, and he may very well use people or organizations that are not necessarily devoted to him to accomplish his purposes in this world. Even, I think what is happening right now in our world may very well be used by God, and I would say is being used by God to open up people around the world to the good news about Jesus Christ. And as I've been reporting over time, what's going on in Iran, how the church has grown from, I heard somebody say recently, just like even 20 years ago, 50,000 people to something like over 1 million. And I heard a guy speaking just recently said that he wrote a book 10, 15 years ago saying, revival's coming to Iran, and God is going to work through Iran to reach the Muslim world. Because they're seeing how Islam, especially the Iranian version of it, which is the Shia, really strict, brutal kind of Islam, is not working. It's failed. 70% of the mosques in Iran are out of business because nobody wants to go to them. God's at work. And we can see that in our world today. And we wonder what's going on sometimes. Well, ask the question, God, what are you up to? Because he's up to something, right? He's involved in our world. It is precious to him. It's precisely because he loves the world which he created and sustains that he sent his Son to be Emmanuel, God with us. All that God created belongs to him, and he is at work in it and through it. He is near. God is immanent, but God is also transcendent. And by this we mean that God is separate from, and he's independent of, and he's superior to all of nature and all of humanity. God is so utterly other, so extraordinary in his being and in his nature that he is far above anything that we are. Stuart Briscoe says this. He says, he is in a different league from mankind, and this transcendence, this aboveness, is not in reference to physical distance, but to quality of being. God and man are fundamentally different kinds of being. To think of God as being the highest in an ascending order of things, says Tozer, is to do him a disfavor, for such a thought would only render him eminent or preeminent above all else. But God is not merely preeminent, he is transcendent. It's something different. He is separated from man by an infinite qualitative distinction and not merely an infinitely better degree of human nature. Millard Erickson, theologian, puts it like this: being qualitatively distinct, God cannot be extrapolated from the ideas man has, nor from the qualities of man's personality or character. In other words, the one triune God cannot ever be an extension or a projection of what humanity is. We do not arrive at God by starting with us. To go that route is to make an idol. We create something that's just us but bigger. God is not just us bigger. God cannot be encountered or known apart from him revealing himself to us. We cannot and we will not arrive at what God is by looking to ourselves. So just imagine, just kind of a limited illustration. So imagine you have a sack of cotton. It's all been picked out of the cotton fields. I saw cotton fields down in North Carolina one time. I wanted to go and get some, but we were in a hurry and I didn't stop. But imagine having a sack of cotton, which then is refined in process after process after process, because you want to have the finest linen cloth possible. Well, you could refine that cotton forever, and you're never going to turn it into silk, right? Two totally different things. And similarly, no matter how much humanity is refined or improved, we will never end up with a being called God, which is exactly what is being taught by some of the cults, such as Mormonism, that you can become God. You know, Jesus was a man, he became a God. So that'll happen to us too. That's what they teach. That is false doctrine. Contrary to their teaching, God and man are fundamentally different kind of beings. In the essence of his nature as well as in the perfections of his being, God is above us, he is beyond us, he is what we are not nor ever can be. He is transcendent. So the psalmist can say, "The Lord is high above all nations, his glory is above the heavens. Who is like the Lord our God, who is enthroned on high, who humbles himself to behold the things that are on the earth and in heaven and on the earth?" Or the prophet Isaiah can record, as he does in Isaiah 6, the passage we probably know. "I saw the Lord sitting on the throne, lofty and exalted, with the train of his robe filling the temple. Seraphim called out, 'Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory.'" Or again Isaiah says in Isaiah 55, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither your ways my ways, declares the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." You see, God is transcendent. He's transcendent in his greatness. He's transcendent in his power. He's transcendent in his knowledge. He's transcendent in his goodness, in his holiness, in his purity. And he is transcendent in the ways that he thinks and in the ways that he acts. He is separated from us by an infinite qualitative distinction. He is a fundamentally different kind of being who is superior to us in every possible way. And the realization of this is important for several reasons. Knowing that God is transcendent helps us to understand that it is his standard of measurement which is important for us to comprehend. Man and his standards are not the measuring stick of the universe and of all that is. Actually, that should come as a relief. What God thinks and what God judges, that's what matters. It's also important for us to realize that our understanding of God will always be limited. By virtue of the fact that we are of a lesser and different order of being, we will never completely grasp who God is, any more than a clay pot can understand the potter. There's a qualitative difference. All our best attempts to define or describe God with words or to understand him in our experience will come up short. We are finite beings, he's an infinite being. He is God. We're human. And we quite simply lack the capacity to know him exhaustively. But, here's the but we can know him truly. God has poured out many gracious gifts upon us. For example, the gift of salvation. He restores us to what he intended us to be. That's his intention, is to restore us to what he intended us to be. It's been said that Christianity is the only religion in the world, it's the only faith system in the world that promises to make us more fully human, and it's true. His desire is not, his design is not, his intention is not to make us less than what we are. He wants to make us as fully human as he created us to be. When the fall happened, something happened to our humanity. It was fractured, it was broken, it was in many ways destroyed. And here's some of the proof. They tell us that we only use maybe maximum 10% of our brain capacity in a lifetime, 100 years old, 100 years long. Imagine if we had full capacity use of our brain. Some of us, we only use 3%. But most people, it's closer to 8 or 9. But, we don't, God's going to restore to us full capacity in our humanity. Incredible, incredible. It's been said that, yes, I already said that the Christian religion, the Christian faith is the only religion that promises to make us more fully human, and it's true. God is not interested in making us into little gods. His intent is to help us to become as fully human as it is possible to become. I'm kind of excited about the prospect, actually. But also we received the gift of salvation. But because of that, we also are enabled to have a relationship with the God who created us, and we also then receive the gift of fellowship and friendship with God, whereby we experience relational harmony and unity with God, which is characterized by an increasing agreement or oneness of mind and desire and will. And I must say this again, as we've already pointed out, that contrary to some religious systems, such as Hinduism or Mormonism, salvation does not mean that man becomes God. There will always remain a difference between man and God. Salvation does not elevate us to what he is, but rather it restores us to what he intended us to be. Salvation does not seek or mean metaphysical unity, but rather it means relational unity is the goal. Salvation and the fellowship which flows from it are gifts of God's grace bestowed on us. Knowing that God is transcendent encourages us to approach him fully recognizing who he is and who we are in relation to him. Reverence is thus appropriate in our relationship with God. For all that he is our friend and he's our father, he is not our buddy and he's not our pal. He is not the man upstairs. I hate it when I hear people talk about God as the man upstairs. He is God. He is high and lifted up. He is full of glory. He's enthroned in the heavens, and we are to revere him. Isaiah says, "For thus says the Lord," Isaiah 57, "For thus says the Lord, the high and exalted one who lives forever, whose name is holy. I dwell in a high and holy place, and also with the contrite and the lowly of spirit, in order to revive the spirit of the lowly and to revive the heart of the contrite." God is transcendent. He is high and lifted up. He is exalted. But he's also come near. He is immanent. He gets involved in the lives of the contrite and the lowly. He's their friend, and he dwells in their midst, in their presence. God is transcendent, but he's also come near. In the person of his Son, Jesus Christ, Emmanuel, God with us, he has personally visited planet Earth and in flesh and blood form has dwelt among us. And he continues to dwell among us. Not in the Shekinah glory residing in the temple in resplendent brightness, but by his Spirit living in the hearts of all those who receive him, those who have received his gracious gift of salvation and the fellowship that it brings. So yes, God is transcendent. He's high and lifted up and full of glory, but mystery of mysteries, God is also near, and he lives within each one who calls on his name. We're going to be taking part in communion this morning, which really tells us God came near. He didn't remain far away, but he drew near to us in the person of Jesus Christ, who was fully God, fully man, lived amongst us. We have the historical record, not just in the Bible, but non-biblical sources as well. Jesus actually lived on the planet. The Son of God took on our flesh, lived amongst us, fellowshiped with us. John says in his first epistle, what we've seen, what we've heard, what we've handled and touched, this is what we tell you about. This one who was with us. That's who we celebrate this morning in communion. The God who came near. The God who gave up his life for us. The God who made salvation possible and relationship possible with him, our Creator. Take a moment to think about that as we prepare for communion. We are celebrating the God who came near and did what he did on the cross so we can have relationship with him.